Good day, Junior Turkeys. This is Mrs. DeMailon speaking, and today we are going to look at Activity 3, the Control Accounts and Reconciliation. Now, when we do reconciliation, we have to keep a few things in mind. But before we do that, let's look at Activity 3. And they say the following appeared in the books of DEJ Traders on the 31st of July 2022. We have to calculate the correct balance of debtors control in the general ledger and show all calculations. That means we have to show bracket calculations if we change any of the totals in the general ledger. Then we have to prepare an adjusted list after errors and omissions have been taken into account, yet again showing the calculations in brackets. And then they say list 2 internal control procedures that must be applied in the business to maintain proper control over debts. And internal control will always come into play with any topic, and this is specific internal control of debtors. So when we look at our procedures for reconciliation, you must remember that you have to follow the steps. So first, we are going to check that all calculations have been done accurately. In other words, we're just going to quickly double check with the totals there, did it total up correctly and was the balance calculated correctly. And the same as all the debits. Step 2 is then checking the items on the debtors control account, everything in the right place. So is the debits on the debit side, credits on the credit side. In other words, checking your layout. And then step 3 and 4 is usually given to you in the form of errors and omissions that you have to take transaction by transaction and make a correction. So let's go. Step 1. They give us the debtors control account and the list, and we have to just step 1, check the calculation. So we're going to check the layout as well. So is everything on the correct side? Yes. In this case, the debtors control layout is correct. Balance brought down is where it should be. Sales on the debit side, journal debits. On the credit side, bank and discount allowed, debtors allowances, and journal credits. Now, when it comes to the debtors list, everything is correct because most debtors should have debit balances. The sort of weird one is Mr. Freilink that has a 3,000 Rand credit balance. So most likely that's already an indication that something is wrong there or that we're going to have to adjust that account. Then, so in other words, our layout is fine. So now we need to check our calculation. So did we add up? Yes. The 18,130 plus the 24,400 plus the 3,400 does equal the 45,930, and it was carried over to the credit side correctly. And then you minus all your debits, and if you minus your debits, you do get 30,080 Rand, and that was brought down on the correct side. Obviously, that does not equal the list, but the list was correctly added as it is at the moment. So if we added the debits and minus the credit of 3,000, you get 19,800. But obviously, they are not reconciling because this brought down 30,080 does not correspond to the 19,800. So we need to now fix this, and that is where the errors and omissions come in. So if we look at the transactions or additional information, we're going to have to take it transaction by transaction. So they say, number 1, assume that the opening balance in the control account on the 1st of July is correct. So I don't need to do anything with it. I can actually just go and write it in. Now, when you do each transaction, you have to keep in mind where the mistake is happening in order to know where to fix it. So if I look at the next one, the debtors journal was undercast by 2,600. Now, if a journal total is undercast, then the control account must be fixed. Now, if you fix that control account, debtors journal is the sales figure that you're going to have to fix. Then the next one, also the sales figure debtors journal must increase with 2,600 Rand. Then it says a payment received from M. Mustafa was posted to J. Kim in error. In other words, it is the list that is incorrect. If there's an error of posting in the list, draw your little T accounts. So we have Kim and Mustafa. Now, we credit Kim's account incorrectly. So we have to debit Kim and credit Mustafa. In other words, plus Kim's account and minus Mustafa's account on the list. The next transaction says the invoice of $950 in the debtors journal was posted to the account of Mustafa as $590. So the debtors journal is correct, therefore the control account is correct. But his account was incorrect, so the list is wrong. But how do I now fix it? The list recorded 590, so you have to get the difference between the correct amount and the incorrect amount. So the 950 is correct, minus the 590, which is the incorrect amount, is 360 rand. And 590 is less than 950, so I'm going to have to add the 360 rand to Mustafa's account. Then a credit note of 350 rand was recorded correctly in the debtors allowance journal, but posted as 530 rand to K Daly's account. Yet again, the list is incorrect because the total is correctly recorded in the journal, so the control is fine. The list is the error. Get the difference between the correct amount and the wrong amount. So the 530 minus the 350 is 180 rand difference. And the 530 is more than the 350. So I must minus off the 180 rand from Daly's account. Then an invoice issued to B. Brunner for 6,400 rand was posted on the wrong side. So Brunner's account is the issue. It was on the wrong side. So usually it should have been debited, but if it's the wrong side, we credited the account. So how do we now correct it? By debiting it twice. Once to cancel the wrong entry and once to actually enter the transaction as an invoice. So you have to enter or plus it twice. Number 7, Freiling's credit balance of 3,000 rand should be transferred to her account in the creditor's ledger. No entry was made of this. So you have to now record this, and because it's a wrong entry, you're going to have to make sure to draw your order, draw the account. So we are working from Freiling as a debtor to Freiling as a creditor. So at the moment, there's a balance of 3,000 rand on the credit side in the debtor's account that needs to move over to the creditor's account. So what should we do? You're going to debit Freiling in the debtor, so adding it there, cancelling out that negative, making it 0, and then putting it into the creditor's account as a 3,000 rand owed. And because none of this was recorded, it means that it's nowhere. So we have to put this into the control account as a journal debit, as well as in Freiling's account on the list. Then, number 8, interest of 150 rand must still be brought into account. So, on the overdue account of Brunner. So, still into account, it's nowhere. So, we have to add it to the list in Brunner's account, but also as a journal credit in the control account because it's not recorded anywhere. And then lastly, discount of 460 rand was correctly entered in the CRJ, but it was left out of the posting to K Daly's account. So only the list is incorrect. So I need to minus off the discount off Daly's account. So now we've looked at each transaction step by step, and now we have to go and apply it in our general ledger. So before we start with putting the transactions in, you start with putting down your layout and your opening totals. So August balance brought down 18,130. They told you that the balance was correct, so you could write it in. Then I write down the sales, and I open bracket 24,400 for the debtors journal. Journal debits as well. Open bracket 3,400. On the credit side, August 31st, bank and discount allowed, CRJ. So you continue and you write down your layout before you even start the rest of the transactions. And in your list, what you should do is copy down everybody's balances as an opening bracket. Be careful when you transfer or write down a credit balance that you put a minus in front of it, or write credit below it so that you know that that's a credit balance. And then once you've done this, you can now enter each transaction. So the first transaction that we had to add was the fact that the sales account or the debtors control column was under cost. So the sales DJ amount must increase with 260 Rand. Then the next transaction is where we incorrectly put the payment into Kim's account instead of Mustafa's account. So you're going to have to increase Mustafa's account again and minus the payment of, increase Kim's account to cancel the minus, and then add it or minus it off Mustafa's account to record it as Mustafa's payment. Then there was an incorrect amount that was posted as 590 instead of 950. So that's 360 Rand that you recorded but under. So you have to add it to Mustafa's account. So plus 360 Rand in Mustafa's account. Yet again, in Daily's account, there was a difference of 530 should have been recorded, but we recorded 350. So there's 180 Rand that is the difference, and you have to add it in because we recorded too little. Then we have Bruner's account where we posted the invoice on the wrong side. So remember, it was credited instead of debited. So what should we do? First cancel it and then record it. So we have to enter it twice in Bruner's account. So please show it twice. So plus 6,400 plus 6,400. You could also just add 12,800, but it's safer to show the double plus, because if you make a mistake of adding or you get the wrong amount there, you lose all your marks. Then Freilink must transfer his account from the debtors balance to the creditors balance. So there was a credit here that you now must take away. So plus 3,000 there and plus 3,000. But remember, this was not recorded anywhere yet. So it will also influence the journal debits. So you'll plus the 3,000 in Freilink's account, and then you will also have to add it in to journal debits because this transaction was not recorded at all anywhere. And then the 150 Rand that was added to Bruner's account as an overdue interest, also not recorded anywhere yet. So you must add it into the journal debits there. And then finally, we had an amount for 460 Rand for discount that was not recorded in Daily's account yet. And that was the only mistakes. Now what is left over is that you have to finish and get your final totals by closing your bracket calculations. So the 24,400 plus the 260 Rand. Sorry, just a correction there. So the sales amount had to increase with 2,600 Rand. And then if you take your 24,400 plus 2,600, you get 27,000. Then moving on to the journal debits, you close your bracket. And if you add the three amounts there, you get 6,550. The other amounts stayed unchanged. So you just copy and paste them from your answer sheet or your question paper. And then what is left over is that you have to now finish off this account by adding up. So you get your total by adding the 18,130 plus the 27,000 plus the 6,550, and you get 51,680. And you carry it over to the credit side, and then you must minus all your credits off, and then you get a balance of 35,830 Rand carried down. which becomes your balance brought down on the 1st of September, 35,830. And then you have to do the same, but for the debtors list. So find your new totals. So close your bracket, do your calculation, and find the total for each debtor. So after you've done that, you will add up your debtors list, and then you will notice that that is also now 35,830. So then the balance of the brought down of the control account must equal or be the same as the total of the debtors list. And then you know that you've done your reconciliation correctly and everything internally is now balancing out and where it recorded where it should be. So then we move on to the theory question. They say list 2 internal control measures that must be applied in a business to maintain proper control over debtors. So there should be a policy for credit approval. Now, credit approval will include things like 3 months of bank statements, your salary slips, proof of residence, statement of income and expenditure to prove that you actually can afford the credit. Then credit checks should be performed regularly. So once a year, every 6 months, recheck your debtors' credit scores and make sure that they can still afford their debt. Then a deterrent is to interest should be charged on an overdue account. So when the payments are due, please remind your customers via SMS regularly, so to avoid actually overcharging them. And you can even make, instead of charging them interest, give them an incentive and give them discount for early payment. And then eventually your debtors control account must be reconciled monthly with your debtors list. And this must be by an independent party. So it must be division of duties. The same person who does the control account cannot be the person who records things in the debtors ledger and cannot be the same person who does the reconciliation. So technically, there should be 3 people involved in this cycle here. And then your debtor, as I say, your debtors clerk cannot do the recon. The recon preferably must be done by the bookkeeper, so that it's an independent party to do the reconciliation, to pick up any mistakes, errors, or even a possibility of fraud or theft. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you guys and girls, you all find this section a bit easier as we go along. Remember, in this section, it's very, very important to go step by step and go back to the basics and make sure that you know the format of your control accounts off by heart. So you need to know what goes on the debit side and what goes on the credit side of your ledger accounts. And then consistency is key. The more you do these activities, the better you will get at it. So practice makes perfect. So as we say, just do it and then do it again and again and again until you have it perfectly correct. Thank you very much for doing this with me. And next time we are going to look at activity 4, debtors reconciliation and internal control. Thank you very much. Have a good day.